The first beast charged straight at Madison with its mouth open wide, showing rows of teeth like broken glass. She waited until the last possible second, then dove to the right and rolled across the sand. The creature crashed into the spot where she had been standing and got a mouthful of sand. Madison jumped to her feet and studied how the beast moved. It was fast in a straight line but seemed to have trouble turning quickly because of its 6 legs. She noticed that the joints where the legs met the body looked softer than the rest of its armored skin. That was a weak point she could use. The second beast tried to attack from her left side while she was watching the first one. Madison spun the metal staff in a wide circle and caught the creature across the snout. It yelped and backed away, giving her a moment to position herself better. She needed to keep all 4 beasts in her sight and not let them surround her. The crowd was shouting now, but not in the way Madison expected. They seemed confused that she was still alive. Most fighters probably died in the first few seconds, but Madison was using her brain instead of trying to match the beasts in strength. Princess Layara stood up from her throne and moved to the edge of her viewing platform. She had watched hundreds of fights in this arena, but had never seen someone fight like this. The human was not panicking or attacking wildly. She was studying and learning even while fighting for her life. The third and fourth beasts joined the attack, and now Madison faced all 4 at once. They tried to coordinate their attacks with 2 coming from the front and 2 from the sides. Madison ran toward the arena wall, forcing them to follow her in a line instead of surrounding her. When the first beast got close enough, she thrust her staff forward into the soft joint where its front leg connected to its body. The beast screamed and collapsed as its leg gave out. Purple blood poured onto the orange sand. The other 3 beasts paused for a moment, seeing their pack member fall. This gave Madison the opening she needed. She charged at the second beast instead of waiting for it to attack her. The creature was not expecting this and tried to back away, but Madison was already moving. She slid under its belly, dragging the pointed end of her staff along the soft underside as she went. The beast made a terrible sound and fell onto its side. 2 beasts remained, and they seemed more careful now. They circled Madison slowly, and their yellow eyes showed something that looked like respect or maybe fear. The crowd had grown quiet, and thousands of aliens watched in silence as this small human female stood against creatures 3 times her size. Madison was breathing hard now, and sweat ran down her face. Her arms hurt from holding the heavy staff, and she knew she was getting tired, but she could not show weakness. The third beast made a fake charge, trying to make her react, but Madison did not move. She had learned their tricks. The fourth beast tried to attack while she watched the third one, but Madison had expected this. She dropped to one knee and angled her staff upward. The beast could not stop in time and ran straight onto the pointed end. The force knocked Madison backward, but the damage was done. The beast stumbled away with the staff stuck deep in its chest before falling onto the sand. Now only 1 beast remained, and Madison had no weapon. She picked up a handful of the orange sand and faced the creature. It growled low and deep as it circled her, looking for the best angle to attack. Madison knew this was the smartest of the 4 beasts. It had watched her fight and learned her moves. The beast charged, but stopped just before reaching her, trying to make her dodge early. When Madison did not move, it swiped at her with massive claws. She jumped back, but not fast enough. The claws tore through her shirt and left 3 deep cuts across her stomach. Pain shot through Madison's body, but she stayed focused. The beast attacked again, and this time Madison threw the sand into its glowing yellow eyes. The creature shook its head, trying to clear its vision, and Madison saw her chance. She ran forward and grabbed the staff that was still stuck in the dead beast on the ground. With all her remaining strength, she pulled the staff free and spun around just as the last beast recovered its sight. The creature leaped at her, and Madison dropped onto her back, raising the staff straight up. The beast landed on top of her, and the staff went deep into its throat. Madison pushed with her legs and rolled the dying beast off of her. She stood up slowly, holding her wounded stomach with one hand. Blood seeped between her fingers, but she remained. On her feet, she looked around at the 4 dead beasts, then up at Princess Layara. The entire arena was silent as Madison raised her blood-covered staff above her head in victory. No one had expected the human to survive, let alone kill all 4 beasts, without taking a serious injury until the very end. Princess Liara did something she had never done before in all her years of watching arena fights. She began walking down the crystal steps from her throne platform. The crowd gasped because the princess never entered the arena after a battle. The guards moved to stop her, but she waved them away with an angry gesture. Madison watched the princess approach across the blood-stained sand. She was even more beautiful up close with her silver hair flowing behind her and her purple skin seeming to glow brighter with each step. Liara stopped just a few feet away from Madison, and they stared at each other. "You are bleeding," the princess said, and her voice was softer than when she had addressed. The crowd. Madison looked down at her stomach where blood still flowed from the claw marks. "Just scratches," she said, though. They both knew it was more serious than that. Liara reached out slowly, like she was afraid Madison might attack her. She placed her hand over Madison's wounded stomach. Her touch was cool, and somehow the pain seemed to lessen. Madison did not pull away, even though every instinct told her not to trust this alien princess. "No one has ever killed 4 Kraith beasts on their first fight," Liara said. "Most die in seconds. But you studied them and found their weakness. You used intelligence instead of strength. That is how humans survive." Madison replied, "We are not the strongest or fastest, but we learn and adapt quickly." The princess smiled, and it changed her whole face. Madison woke up in a cold metal cell with no windows and only a small light in the ceiling. She tried to remember how she got here, but her head hurt too much. The last thing she could recall was working on the mining equipment at the colony on planet Kepler when bright lights filled the sky. She stood up slowly and checked herself for injuries. Her blue work uniform was torn in places, but she seemed unhurt. The cell was small with just a metal bench and nothing else. The walls hummed with a strange energy that made her skin tingle. The door suddenly opened without warning. 3 tall figures entered the cell. They had purple skin that seemed to glow from within, and eyes that were twice the size of human eyes. They wore armor made of some crystal material that Madison had never seen before. The one in the middle spoke, and Madison was surprised she could understand the words. "You are awake. Human female. Good. You will come with us now." Madison backed against the wall. "Who are you, and what do you want with me?" "We are the Zorathi, and you belong to us now," the leader said. "You will fight for the entertainment of our people. If you refuse, you die here. If you fight and lose, you die in the arena. If you fight and win, you live another day." Madison felt fear but pushed it down. She had been a soldier before becoming an engineer, and she knew showing weakness would only make things worse. "I want to speak to whoever is in charge." The guards made a sound that might have been laughter. "You will meet Princess Liara soon enough. She enjoys watching new species die in creative ways." They grabbed Madison's arms and dragged her from the cell. The hallway outside was massive, with ceilings that stretched up at least 50 feet. The walls were made of the same crystal as their armor and gave off a soft purple light. Other cells lined the corridor, and Madison could hear sounds from inside them, but could not see the other prisoners. They took her to a preparation chamber where other Zorathi waited. They removed her torn uniform and gave her new clothes made of a strange black material that felt like silk, but was stronger than steel. The outfit was simple pants and a sleeveless top that allowed free movement. They also gave her boots that molded perfectly to her feet. A female Zorathi approached with a device in her hand. She pressed it against Madison's neck, and she felt a sharp sting. "This will allow you to understand all languages in the arena," the female said. "You will need to understand the crowd when they call for your death." Madison rubbed her neck where the device had been pressed. "How many humans have you brought here before?" The female tilted her head. "You are the first. Your species is new to space travel. They discovered your mining colony by accident and decided to take one of you as a test. Most species do not survive their first fight, so we only took one." They led Madison through more corridors until they reached massive doors that stretched up 30 feet. The sound of thousands of voices came from the other side. The guards pushed the doors open, and Madison saw the arena for the first time. It was enormous, bigger than any stadium on Earth. The ground was covered in orange sand that sparkled in The light of 3 suns overhead stone walls rose up on all sides with rows and rows of seats filled with thousands of Zarathi and other alien species she did not recognize. At the very top of the arena sat a throne made of pure crystal, and on that throne sat the most beautiful and terrifying being Madison had ever seen. Princess Liara had purple skin like the other Zarathi, but hers seemed to shine with an inner light. Her hair was silver and flowed down past her shoulders. She wore a gown that looked like it was made of starlight. The princess stood and the entire arena fell silent. She raised one hand and spoke in a voice that carried to every corner of the space. Today, we have something special. A human female from the planet, called Earth. She is the first of her kind to enter our arena. Let us see if humans are worth adding to our collection, or if they are as weak as they appear. The crowd roared with excitement, and Madison felt the sound vibrate through her bones. The guards pushed her forward into the center of the arena, and then retreated through a small door that sealed behind them. Madison stood alone in the middle of all that sand, with thousands of aliens watching her. A different door opened on the far side of the arena, and Madison heard growling sounds that made her stomach turn. 4 creatures emerged from the darkness. They were huge, at least 8 feet tall, with 6 legs each, and teeth that looked like they could bite through steel. Their skin was black with red stripes, and their eyes glowed yellow in the strange light. These were Kraith beasts, and Madison realized she was expected to fight all 4 of them with no weapons. A guard appeared at another door and threw something into the sand near her. It was a metal staff about 6 feet long with pointed ends. Madison grabbed it quickly, though she knew it would not be much help against those monsters. The crowd cheered as the beasts began to circle her. Madison forced herself to breathe slowly and think clearly. She had studied alien biology as a hobby back on Earth, and she tried to remember anything useful about creatures like these. They moved like pack hunters working together to trap prey. Princess Liara leaned forward on her throne to watch more closely. Something about this small human female interested her. Most prisoners screamed or begged or tried to run, but this one stood still and appeared to be thinking. Princess Liara turned to face the crowd and raised her voice so everyone could hear. This human has proven herself worthy. She will not fight again in this arena. Instead, she will serve as my personal advisor. The crowd erupted in angry shouts and confused voices, but Liara ignored them all. Madison swayed on her feet as the loss of blood made her dizzy. Liara caught her before she could fall and called for the medical team. Strange aliens with 4 arms, each rushed onto the sand carrying devices. Madison did not recognize they worked on her wounds with tools that sealed the cuts without stitches. "You should have let me die with honor," Madison said as they helped her walk. Everyone here wanted to see it. Liara walked beside her and kept one hand on Madison's arm to steady her. "I do not care what they wanted. I saw something in you that I have never seen before. You think differently than any fighter I have watched." They took Madison to a medical chamber in the palace section of the arena complex. The walls here were white crystal instead of purple, and everything seemed cleaner and quieter. The medical team laid her on a soft platform that molded itself to her body shape. Liara stayed in the room watching as they worked on Madison. Injuries. Most of the medical team seemed nervous having their princess so close, but she refused to leave. She studied Madison's face as the human tried not to show how much pain she felt. "Tell me about your planet," Liara said, trying to distract Madison from the medical treatment. "Tell me about Earth and your people." Madison took a breath and began to talk. She told Liara about blue skies and green trees, about oceans that covered most of the planet. She explained how humans had nearly destroyed themselves with wars, but learned to work together to reach the stars. She talked about art and music and the 1,000 different cultures that made up humanity. Liara listened to every word and asked many questions. She had read reports about Earth, but hearing Madison describe it made it seem real and beautiful. The princess found herself leaning closer as Madison spoke, drawn in by the passion in her voice. Over the next few weeks, Madison recovered from her injuries and learned about her new position. Liara had given her quarters near the princess' own rooms. The space was larger than her entire apartment back on Earth. with windows that looked out over the Crystal City. Every day, Liara would visit, and they would talk for hours. Madison learned that the Zarathi Empire controlled dozens of star systems, and that the arena fights were an ancient tradition. The princess explained that her people valued strength above all else, which was why Madison victory had shocked them so much. But you used your mind, not your muscles, Liara said during one of their conversations. You turned their strength against them. This is something my people need to learn. Madison began teaching Zarathi soldiers new fighting techniques based on human martial arts. She showed them how to use an opponent force against them and how to win fights without relying on pure strength. At first, they resisted learning from a human, but after Madison defeated their best warrior using only defensive moves, they began to pay attention. The princess watched these training sessions from a balcony above the practice area. She saw how Madison never humiliated the warriors she defeated, but instead helped them understand what they did wrong. The human was earning their respect through patience and teaching, not through dominance. One evening, Liara invited Madison to dine with her privately in her chambers. The room was beautiful, with furniture that seemed to be grown rather than built, and lights that floated in the air without any visible support. They sat across from each other at a low table covered with foods from different worlds. "Why did you really save me?" Madison asked as she tried something that looked like blue fruit but tasted like chocolate. "You could have let me die and captured another human to test." Liara was quiet for a moment, then looked directly at Madison's eyes. "When you stood in that arena covered in blood and surrounded by death, you smiled at me. No fear, no anger, just a smile, as if you had won more than just a fight." Madison remembered that moment and how she had felt looking up at the beautiful alien princess. "I knew I was probably going to die anyway, so why not smile at the end?" "But you did not die," Liara said, and her voice was soft. "You survived, and now you are changing my empire in ways I never imagined." They continued to grow closer over the following months. Madison introduced new ideas to the Zarathi, like mercy for defeated enemies and alliances based on trade instead of conquest. Liara supported every change, even when her advisors protested. The day came when a human diplomatic ship arrived at the Zarathi homeworld. They had tracked Madison's location and come to negotiate for her release. The human ambassador was a tall woman named Kelly, who seemed shocked to find Madison not only alive but holding a position of power. Madison met with Kelly in the throne room with Liara beside her. The princess had insisted Madison stand with her as an equal, not behind her as a servant. This gesture was not lost on the human delegation. "We have come to bring you home," Kelly said, looking at Madison, torn between relief and confusion. "Your family thinks you are dead." Madison felt something twist in her chest at the mention of family. She had a sister back on Earth and parents who must have mourned her, but she looked at Liara and knew what her answer would be. "I am home," Madison said simply. "This is where I belong now." Kelly frowned and turned to Liara. "We demand the return of our citizen. She was taken against her will. She is free to leave if she wishes." Liara said, though her voice shook slightly, "I will not keep her here by force." Everyone in the throne room looked at Madison and waited for her answer. She could return to Earth and her old life, or stay here with Liara and the new life she had built. The choice was hers alone. Madison turned to face Liara and took her hand in front of everyone. The princess' eyes widened at the public display, but she did not pull away. "I choose to stay," Madison said loud enough for everyone to hear. "My place is here with you." The throne room erupted in whispers and gasps as Madison pulled Liara closer. The news of Princess Liara and Madison's relationship spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Some species called it impossible, while others saw it as a sign of changing times. The Zarathi Empire was divided, with younger generations supporting their princess and older ones resisting the change. Madison moved into Liara royal chambers officially, and they began the work of ruling together. Every morning they would meet with advisors, and every evening they would walk through the crystal gardens talking about the future they wanted to build. 3 months after their declaration in the arena, a group of Zarathi traditionalists attempted a revolt. They stormed the palace at night, believing they could separate Madison from Liara and restore the old ways. They did not expect Madison to fight beside the palace guards. Madison had learned much about Zorathi combat, but she had also taught the guards human tactics. When the attackers came, they found defenders who fought with both strength and strategy. Madison led a group of guards through secret passages she had discovered and attacked the rebels from behind. The fight was fierce, but short. Madison found herself facing the rebel leader who screamed about pure blood and tradition. As he swung his crystal blade at her, she dodged and struck his weapon hand with her staff, making him drop the sword. "You fight for something that never really existed," Madison told him as guards surrounded him. The Zorathi were never pure because purity leads to weakness. Mixing with other species makes us all stronger. Liara arrived with reinforcements and saw Madison standing over the defeated rebel leader, covered in small cuts but victorious. The princess felt her heart swell with pride and loved this human who had been brought here to die now, defended their home with more passion than many born Zorathi. After the revolt was crushed, Liara made an announcement that shocked everyone. She declared that the Zorathi Empire would open its borders to all species for trade and cultural exchange. The arena would no longer be used for death matches but for sporting competitions, where different species could compete without killing. Many nobles protested this decision, but Madison had a solution. She proposed a council system where representatives from different parts of the empire and different species would help make decisions. This was a human concept called democracy that the Zorathi had never tried before. Lord Varric, who had become one of Madison's strongest supporters after she spared his life, spoke up in the throne room. "This human has brought us ideas that make us stronger, not weaker. I have seen our young warriors learning her techniques, and they defeat opponents twice their size using strategy instead of brute force." More human ships began arriving at the Zorathi homeworld, bringing traders and diplomats and scientists. Madison's sister Amy was on one of these ships, and the reunion was emotional. Amy had thought Madison was dead for over a year. When Amy met Liara, she was suspicious at first. She pulled Madison aside and asked, "Are you happy here? Really happy? Or is this some kind of Stockholm syndrome?" Madison laughed and hugged her sister. "I am happier than I have ever been. Liara sees me as an equal partner. We are building something amazing together. Look around you. Humans and Zorathi working side by side. This was impossible a year ago." Amy watched her sister over the next few weeks and saw the truth. Madison and Liara moved together like dancers, each knowing what the other needed without words. When Liara spoke in council meetings, Madison would add points that perfectly complemented her words. When Madison trained warriors, Liara would watch, with obvious pride and love. The first interspecies wedding in Zorathi history took place 6 months later. Madison and Liara decided to combine traditions from both cultures. The ceremony was held in the arena where they first met, but now it was decorated with flowers from Earth and crystals from the Zorathi homeworld. Madison wore a dress that mixed human white silk with Zorathi crystal threads that caught the light of the three suns. Liara wore her royal armor but decorated with earth, flowers in her silver hair. Thousands attended from dozens of different species, all wanting to witness this historic moment. Amy stood as Madison maid of honor while Lord Varric surprisingly volunteered to stand for Liara. The ceremony was conducted by both a human official and a Zorathi elder, showing the unity of both cultures. When it came time for vows, Madison spoke first. "Liara, you took me from my world by force, but you gave me a new universe by choice. You showed me that love has no boundaries, not species, not culture, not even the vast darkness of space. I promise to stand beside you, through whatever comes." Liara's eyes shimmered with emotion as she responded. "Madison of Earth, you entered my life as a prisoner, and became my teacher, my partner, my heart. You showed me that true strength comes from mercy and wisdom, not just power. I promise to love you with all that I am, for all the time the universe gives us." When they kissed, the arena erupted in celebration instead of the silence that had greeted their first public kiss. Ships from both species flew overhead in formation, creating patterns in the sky. Music from Earth mixed with Zorathi crystal chimes, creating something entirely new. The wedding feast lasted 3 days with foods from across the galaxy. Representatives from species that had been enemies for centuries sat together and talked. Madison and Liara moved through the crowds together, showing everyone that different species could not just coexist, but thrive together on their wedding night as they stood on their balcony watching the 3 suns set. Liara pulled Madison close and whispered, "Thank you for choosing to stay. Thank you for choosing us." Madison turned in her arms and smiled. "I would make the same choice, 1,000 times over. You are my home now." They kissed as the suns disappeared and the stars came out. Stars that now represented not separation, but connection between worlds. A year later, Madison stood in the arena again, but this time she held a microphone addressing a crowd of young beings from dozens of species. They had come to learn at the new academy. She and Liara had created. "Each of you is here because you believe in a better future," Madison said, looking at the eager faces. "A future where strength comes from unity, not division. Where different species learn from each other instead of fighting." Liara joined her on the platform and took her hand. "Together we are stronger," the princess said. "This is the lesson Madison taught us, and now we teach it to you." The crowd cheered and Madison smiled. This was what she had fought for, not just survival, but transformation. Kelly and the human delegation left after 3 days of negotiations. They agreed to establish trade relations with the Zorathi Empire, with Madison serving as the official liaison between the 2 species. Before Kelly departed, she pulled Madison aside for a private conversation. "Are you sure about this?" Kelly asked, searching Madison's face for any sign of doubt. "You are choosing to live among aliens who kidnapped you." Madison smiled and looked through the window where Liara was walking in the crystal gardens below. "They took me by force, but I stay by choice. I have found something here I never expected to find." Kelly followed her gaze and understanding dawned on her face. "You care about her?" "The princess." Madison nodded without hesitation. "She sees me as more than just a curiosity or a pet. She values my mind and my ideas. We are building something together that could change both our species for the better." After the humans left Madison, and Liara grew even closer. They spent every evening together discussing plans for reform and sharing stories of their different worlds. Liara taught Madison about Zorathi art and science, while Madison introduced concepts like democracy and individual freedom. One night, as they watched the 3 suns set from Liara's private balcony, the princess asked a question that had been bothering her. "Do you miss Earth? Do you regret staying here with me?" Madison turned to look at her and saw real worry in those violet eyes. She reached out and touched Liara's face gently. "I miss my family and the blue sky sometimes, but I do not regret my choice. You have become my family now." Liara leaned into Madison's touch and closed her eyes. "My people will never fully accept this. They tolerate you because of your victory in the arena, but a human standing beside their princess as an equal troubles them. Then we will show them that different species can work together as equals." Madison said, "We will prove that strength comes in many forms, not just physical power." A month later, during a celebration of the Zorathi New Year, a group of nobles confronted Liara in the throne room. They demanded that Madison be sent away or returned to the arena. Their leader was Lord Varric, who had always opposed any changes to their traditions. "This human has too much influence over you," Varric said, pointing at Madison, who stood beside the throne. "She makes you weak with her strange ideas about mercy and cooperation." Madison started to speak, but Liara raised her hand for silence. The princess stood from her throne and walked down to face Varric directly. She was taller than him, and her presence made him step back. "You say she makes me weak," Liara said in a dangerous voice. "Then you will prove it in the traditional way. You will face her in combat in the arena. If you win, she leaves. If she wins you, and your supporters will never question her place again." The crowd gasped, and Madison grabbed Liara's arm. "Princess, I do not need to fight for my place here." "Yes, you do," Liara whispered. "Back, this is the only way they will ever accept you. Trust me," Varric smiled, thinking this would be easy. He was one of the strongest Zorathi warriors and had never lost a fight. Very well. I accept this challenge. The next day, the arena filled with more spectators than ever before. Word had spread that the human advisor would fight Lord Varric, and everyone wanted to see the outcome. Madison entered the arena, wearing the same black fighting clothes from her first battle. Varric stood across from her, wearing decorated armor and carrying a crystal sword. Madison had only her metal staff, the same one she had used against the beasts. Liara watched from her throne, and their eyes met across the distance. Madison nodded once to show she understood. Fight began, and Varric charged immediately, expecting to overwhelm Madison with his size and strength. But Madison had spent months training Zorathi soldiers, and she knew exactly how they moved. She dodged his sword and struck his knee with her staff, making him stumble. Varric roared in anger and swung his sword in wide arcs, trying to cut Madison in half. She stayed just out of reach and waited for her opening. When he overextended on a particularly aggressive swing, Madison moved inside his guard and drove her staff into his throat. The noble fell to his knees, gasping for air. Madison could have finished him then, but instead she stepped back and waited for him to recover. This was not what anyone expected. In Zorathi tradition, you always finished your opponent. Why do you not kill me? Varric wheezed, still on his knees. Because there is another way, Madison said loud enough for everyone to hear. You are a skilled warrior, and the Empire needs skilled warriors. You can serve Liara and help make our people stronger together, or you can die here for nothing. Choose. Varric looked up at Madison, then at Princess Liara on her throne. He saw something in that moment that changed his mind. The human was offering him honor in defeat, something no Zorathi would have done. He stood slowly and dropped his sword to yield, he said, and the crowd exploded in shocked voices. I accept the human as your equal. Princess Liara. Madison helped Varric to his feet, and the crowd fell silent as they watched this strange display of mercy. Princess Liara stood from her throne and began walking down to the arena floor, just as she had done the first time Madison fought. When she reached them, Liara took Madison's hand and raised it high. This human has shown us a new kind of strength. She has proven that mercy can be more powerful than death, and that different species can stand together. As one, Liara turned to face Madison directly, and the entire arena seemed to hold its breath. In all my years, I have never met anyone like you, Madison of Earth. You have changed not just my empire, but my heart as well. Madison smiled and squeezed Liara's hand, not caring that thousands watched them. Say it, she whispered. Say what we both know to be true. Liara looked into Madison's eyes and spoke the words clear and strong. I love you, human. The arena fell completely silent as every being present tried to process what they had just heard. Their princess had declared love for an alien, for a human who had been brought here to die. Madison pulled Liara close and kissed her in front of everyone. The silence broke and the arena filled with a roar of voices. Some cheered, some protested, but most simply stood in shock at what they witnessed. When they finally pulled apart, Liara addressed her people again. This human is no longer my advisor. She is my chosen partner and will rule beside me as my equal. Any who challenge this challenge, us both. Madison looked out at the crowd and saw the future spreading before them. Two species learning from each other, growing stronger together. It would not be easy, but nothing worth doing ever was. She had found love in the most unexpected place, and she would fight to keep it together. Madison and Liara walked out of the arena hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next.